Hi everyone, I'm Divya, and this is Uplift, a show where you'll meet everyday women being everyday phenomenal. And today's phenomenal guest is my beautiful friend, Gaelyn. Hi, Gaelyn.
Hey Divya, hi everyone. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to sharing my story.
I'm so happy. You're my very early on guest, so I'm really happy to have you on the show. How's your week been? How are you?
It's been good. It's been, the short weeks tend to be busy, so it's a
Yeah,
mad scramble to get stuff done, but I'm really happy it's the weekend. The weather's gorgeous. So I
it
couldn't
is
ask for
very good.
anything more. Yeah.
While walking up the steps, there are so many cicadas.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm kind of freaked out a little bit, but it was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It's they don't freak me out as much. I just love the warm weather, and
Yeah.
I try to get a little bit of yard work done, and it's very uplifting to just look out at the trees, and because they're so bare in the
Yeah.
winter, and then suddenly in the summertime it's so gorgeous.
That's awesome. And does Roxy actually eat the
Yeah,
cicadas?
if I'm not paying attention, she'll get one or two down, and I'm not looking.
Roxy is a very, very cute dog, by
Yeah,
the way.
it's like Roxy, cicadas are not a snack.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again for being here. I would love for you to like walk us through. And I don't think I've actually heard your story about your journey in this country as an immigrant. I
Yeah.
know that you came like many, many years ago. I would
Yes.
love for you to just kind of
Yes.
share a little bit of yourself with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
listeners and the viewers.
Yeah, it's, I think last year marked almost as many years that I've been here as I lived in India.
Mhm.
So I came here soon after grad school with, I would say, maybe like not much money in my pocket, but a dream.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about my story is that I have an undergrad degree in architecture. And so I thought I'd come here and I'd study architecture and I'd actually go back and, build beautiful buildings and, homes and stuff. And then when I came here, I don't know what pivoted, and I felt that I wanted to stay here and live and experience life here. And then, the practical choice, so to speak, was to study computers. And
Mm.
without even giving it a thought, it's just like how when you're young, you can make decisions
Yeah.
without really thinking of consequences in the future, and without giving it a thought, I was like, sure, I'll go study computers. And so I completely changed direction. I started off doing a master's in New Mexico at the University of New Mexico in architecture.
Gotcha.
And then I got an assistantship at Michigan. So imagine, I went from Mumbai to Michigan just from the weather. It was crazy, the cold, and you barely recognize people like we'd recognize them by their big parkas. Like, oh, that's a yellow parka. It must be whatever, Suzanne.
Yeah.
So it was a big shift, but there's you just have to make practical decisions. I think
Yeah.
when I came here, I had amazing support from my family. So, but I was told that we'll get you through one semester, and after that you're on your own. And so it was like, okay, there's no sign of a scholarship, there's no sign of a job. I have to
Right.
do something that's going to get me through. And I got an assistantship. I got paid tuition, so it was pretty amazing. And so that's the story. That's
That's
the
amazing.
launch, and
Yeah.
then the rest is sort of history, almost like the beaten path.
Yeah.
I graduated. I was offered a job in Boston, and again, you just say, okay, what, how does it
You're just
matter?
gonna go.
Yeah, I moved from Michigan to Boston again in a heartbeat. Lived there for 13 years, made great friends.
Yeah.
And, I love Boston. It's just such an amazing culture, just with the people. And the thing I love most about Boston is it's such a entrepreneurial city, and actually I didn't even live in Boston. I lived in Cambridge, which to me is a completely different place.
Mhm.
And you walk down the street, you go to a party, everyone is doing something that's just not mainstream. Everyone's thinking, and they're trying to think
Yeah.
of what's the future. And so I loved it there. And then I think I made what was probably one of the other really big decisions of my life, to move to DC, because I had family here.
Yeah.
And so it was great. It took me a while to adjust because, like I said, the culture is different. And, in Boston, I lived in the city. Here, I live in the suburbs.
Right.
But I've made great friends, you included.
Yes.
And that just helps you ride it out, and just lots of great family here. So that's been my immigrant journey from student to, where I am right now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So just because she mentioned that we've been friends for a while, we met through a common friend maybe 4 years ago.
Something like
I
that,
think.
yeah.
And Gaelyn was one of those people that she had the most like confident presence in the room, and I had no choice but to like walk up to her and like talk to her,
so sweet.
get to know her.
Yeah.
And we've been friends ever since, and I'm really glad to have you as a friend in my life.
I could say the same. I think when I first met you, you were such a vivacious and lovely presence in the room. You just bring an energy that's so positive and happy.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So it's common feelings.
Yes, yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm going to go back actually to your journey, because I know, first of all, I see a lot of similarities, but we're not going to talk about me with my journey. But also that common factor about how a lot of people just like go with the flow. When you're younger, like you're just going to go with the opportunities. And I feel things are, I have like my niece who is very careful about the career choices she makes, but I have a nephew who doesn't care, and he's like, okay, I'm just going to go with the flow.
Yeah.
I'm going to go where I can make the most money. What advice do you regret, first of all, switching your career? Do you like look back and say that, oh, I wish I would have actually pursued to be an architect?
To be an architect, yeah.
And what would you advise the younger generation who are now like on that same, like especially like immigrant generation?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Where how do you create a balance of because you're an immigrant and there are already restrictions on the type of jobs you can take or the places you can work at.
Yeah.
How do you balance with the aspirations that you have versus, hey, I'm going to make more money, so I'm just going to like go for it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's been the same for me, where I wanted to do something different entirely, but what I'm doing right, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But completely different than what I wanted to do earlier.
Yeah.
So would love your take here.
I think my take on it to the younger generation is always do something you enjoy. And so I was very fortunate that when I made my career shift, I really enjoyed what I was doing.
Yeah.
If I hated it, then I would have looked back and said, oh, I have regrets. The thing I do wonder about sometimes, though, is I'm an artistic person. I have an undergrad degree in architecture, and so that side of me is sort of tampered down a little bit because it's all about business, it's all about technology, and so just trying to find ways to manifest that side of me. I bought this house and tore down walls right off the bat because it's like, I want to do it. It was just, it's just like dormant inside me. I have to do it.
Beautiful house, by the way.
Thank you. And so so just going back to my advice to young people is do something you enjoy. But yes, I mean, especially as an immigrant, I think you have to be practical. You can't, you first of all, you don't have a job, you get kicked out of the country, there's health insurance considerations. So there's a balance between being practical and being enjoying what you do.
Yeah.
I will say that what people say, like, have passion for what you do. I do. Like, even though I switched careers, I think the passion comes from, it just comes from growth, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm someone who wants to grow and continuously evolve.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what drives my passion, is like, I'm doing something today. And if you think of my career journey, which we haven't talked about much, but I went from architecture to computer science, and there's always been the passion to excel at what I do.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't enough to just like go into computers, but I had to be top of the class. And so it just, in some ways, as an immigrant or just as a human being, there's that unnecessary pressure we put on ourselves. Yeah. And so my other advice to someone was just enjoy the journey. And the outcomes are great. Like, it's great for you to be top of the class and all of that, right, but don't let that dominate your life and your existence.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so, so that, so I went from, it's interesting because I actually did this for myself the other day, like I'm trying to figure out, okay, what comes next?
Yeah.
And so I was like, what was Gaelyn 1.0, 2.0, 3.0? And so I went from being a tech consultant developer to being a technical architect. And then I said, okay, I really want to do something different. And so now like a management consultant, still with a technology focus, but it's completely different. Like it's an advisory service. I'm walking in and I'm talking to, CIOs and CMOs and telling them what to do. Not telling them, but advising them on what to do. And it's interesting. And another reason why I think it's interesting going back to the journey is when I came here, 24 years ago, and I was studying architecture, one of the things that I was in a room, and it's interesting that you looked at me and you said I come across as being so confident, but I was in this room full of people who lived here all their lives. They knew how to talk, they knew how to be. And I said, I'm never going to be able to compete with this. Like even as an architect, you have to stand in a room and you have to convince clients of why you're thinking a certain way. And they just exuded so much confidence. And I wouldn't say I was shy, but I was, finding my way. I was like, I'm going to go and do something that's a little more like quiet. And then here I am 20 something years later, in that position, in a role that's confident. So it's quite a journey. And so then my other advice to anyone would be, and I know this is not about advice, but
no, please.
It's just believe in yourself, because this I don't have the quote with me, but like our common friend Kriti, she sent me this quote one day and I stick it in my head, because the quote says the only thing holding you back is you. And so if you have confidence in yourself and you believe in what you can be, then just go do it. And you might fail. So what? Just try again. Nobody's pointing fingers and saying, oh, that person failed or whatever. Right? Just do it and come out of it. Learn lessons from what you've done. Like don't repeat your mistakes, because then that's not good. But don't be afraid to fail.
Well, you heard it right here. So I know you talked a little bit about work, and I want to make sure that this is not all about the DC talk about work, right? So I would love for you to just like talk about the difference that you think that you're making in the, not just necessarily community, like larger community, but also like your work community. Like what are some of the things that you've done or you continue to do that just becomes like an affirmation, positive upliftment for the community, whether they're your coworkers, whether it's Roxy, your family, or anybody around you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a couple of things. One is I've always grown up, like when I was growing up, my mom, she had 6 children, and yet somehow she managed to make time to go out and be a part of, church activities and giving back to the community. And that's always been inside me, the desire to do something and to give back. And I confess that I think the last 2 or 3 years I've been not as diligent about it because, life just takes its course. But in a previous life, I feel very strongly about education and empowerment. And so when I lived in Boston, I volunteered with this group that actually taught kids in high school about finance, like how do you manage your money, what is a credit card, like hey, you have a credit card, it's not free money, just like sometimes they think that. And so that I think was a good exercise. And then when I came here, I volunteered with the group again about education. It was about adult literacy, and it's amazing how many people in this country, like adults, don't even know. Like I was teaching 50-year-old women ABC, and it was sad and tragic in a way that that's their life circumstance, where they don't even know how to read, so they can't even get a job in a store or even like a McDonald's or something, because you still have to know the basics. And I found I would go back to that. It's just one of those things that's fallen through the cracks in the past couple of years. But if I were to go back and volunteer, it would be about education and helping people just get that leg up, because they just don't know. And
do you remember from that time, especially I feel like the adult literacy is really like resonating with me in what I've experienced, through work and financial literacy as well. Primarily. Anything that like stuck out to you at that point is like, why, when these women are 50 and over, what drove them to actually come to that class and wanting to learn? Like what is it that they suddenly were able to say like, okay, no, I actually
Yeah.
need to learn this.
Yeah.
It'll be great. Yeah.
One of them said she wanted to read to her grandchildren. And she
Whoa.
said, yeah, I have grandchildren and I can't even read to them and I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Some of them, I guess, they've just been so busy through their lives raising children. Like one of them had 14 children or something. And it's just,
My goodness.
that was just her life.
Yeah.
And I mean, without going down a rabbit hole of the tragedy of her life, just the sadness of abusive parents being in other things that happened to her when she was young. And so that's the path her life took. And then suddenly at 50, I guess some of those encumbrances, her children were out and so on. And she felt like she wanted to do something else. So that's just how it goes. It was sad and yet uplifting, because I think the sad part of it is that it's hard if someone's that age to start learning ABC. I mean, if they're there at that point, it's they just have other learning disabilities and stuff.
Yeah, with no idea what's going to happen to them in the future or what their future is going to look like. Yeah,
but at least they were trying, and that was good.
More power to them. Yeah, absolutely. So outside of that, like, what are some of the things that get you up and going? What motivates you? I know that for a fact that you work like very long hours.
Yeah.
So how do you keep yourself in the game day in and day out? I'm sure everyone has days where you don't want to be there because you need time for yourself, for your body, for your mind. Back like on Tuesday, after the long weekend, Memorial Weekend, I was feeling completely fine Monday night. And then Tuesday when I woke up, I don't know, I had this fatigue that I could not like get myself to get to my desk and say that, hey, I can be physically present today and mentally. So I called my boss and I was like, hey, is it okay if I take some time from me today? She was gracious enough to give me that, but not a lot of women, get that.
Yeah.
But just how do you do that in your position? Because I know that you're in a powerful position as well, where you have to be there every day.
Yeah. So I wish I could say that I had better work-life balance, but I think what I try to do is get a lot on like the weekends. There's some people who feel like they have to be on the go all the time. I'm not that person. If I crash and burn on the weekend, I'm like, I deserve this. So I don't necessarily sleep in late. I'm just one of those people who wakes up early. But if I just have to sit around and, not do anything, I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's my way of de-stressing, is to just allow myself the quiet time and not feel guilty about it. Like there's some people who say, oh my God, I'm just sitting around doing nothing. I feel so guilty. I'm like, don't feel guilty. You just work, a 45, 60-hour week.
Yeah.
And if you have to chill out, just chill out.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I think my family is really strong for me. So just going and hanging out with my sisters or their children, it's just good. Take my dog for a walk. So those are things. And then of course I've got amazing friends. So doing that. What's another thing that's interesting is I think through the pandemic, this whole idea of FOMO I feel I've overcome that a little bit, because otherwise I would feel like compelled to even go out and, be with people, and for better or for worse. It might not be for better. Actually, I'm like, I'm okay being by myself.
Well, I did invite her to go out tonight and she's like, maybe I'll let you know.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know that that's a good thing, but I think, in some ways that's just my way of saying, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy the downtime.
Yeah.
And enjoying my own company, I think, is also a good thing. And there's this and that. Like I try to do something or the other to take my mind off stuff. I wish I could say I was dedicated, like, oh, I dedicatedly do yoga every morning, or I play music or whatever, but I do bits and pieces. So sometimes I'll do photography, sometimes I'll do yoga, sometimes I'll just sing or play some music or whatever. So you just find ways to unwind.
Have you had in the last year, and not to be like on the negative side of things, but with the pandemic, and we're still working to get ourselves out of it, have you had any just learnings or insights? Because I feel for a lot of people, it was a time of reflection because you had just a lot of time for yourself to think, and not being social, not really having a lot of friends that you can say, hey, everybody's in my pod. You can't do that. So have you felt a clarity on some aspects of your life that you otherwise were just going with the flow because everyone is so busy. You're busy. On the weekends, you have plans. But has this time given you things that you didn't know about yourself or any learnings that you would like to share?
Yeah. So, so two things. I think one is what we talked about earlier, the idea of just knowing and recognizing it's okay to be at home and not go out and be out and about all the time. Just enjoy myself and my own company. I think the second thing is I had COVID in January and it was very mild. Like it wasn't, I didn't have to go to the hospital or anything, but I came out of it thinking I've been spared. Like there's people who've died of this, and for some reason, God has chosen to keep me alive.
Yeah.
And so it did give me a moment to pause and say, what's next for me in terms of, why am I here?
Yeah.
And going back to just the immigrant journey, it's just go, go, go all the time, because in some ways it's a bit of survival. Like there's no other support system. The only thing you have is you.
Yeah.
And you just have to make it work somehow. And that's top of mind, right? And so I think in January, I was like, okay, great. You've accomplished what you set out to accomplish. You're here. It doesn't mean you stop the career path, but now think of like, what do you want to do next that's bigger than just the next promotion? And so even when I'm thinking about my career and stuff, I'm thinking about it more holistically, not in that I want to, give it up and go do some volunteer work or whatever, but how do you find the balance and combination? And even in my job, how can I be more of a mentor to people? So I don't know where it's going to go. It's been something that I'm pausing to think about, and I just have to see where that journey is going to lead, because for now it's the recognition that something has to change and I want to do it. So just I think one of the things I've started doing is becoming more involved in I joined an organization called Women in Technology, and it's hard in the pandemic to meet face to face, but I'm just like, I've been on phone calls with these amazing women, right? And so just seeing if I can use that organization as a foothold to be a mentor or something, whether it's someone who's in early career or whether it's girls in technology, something like that. Okay. So that's sort of what I'm thinking of for next steps. Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking of ending with that question, but I do have like the fun facts and we still have to go into that. But do you, now that you're talking about, you had a moment where you just have to like stop and think for yourself and really the bigger picture of what is Gaelyn's next move, right?
Yeah.
So do you have, at least aspirationally, not immediately, what is next in your journey? Like where do you want to be like 10 or 20 years from now?
Yeah.
Not that you have everything planned out and figured out, but what do you see for yourself?
Good question. I think one of the things that I want to see, and it's not a role, it's not a job, it's not whatever, it's just being impactful in whatever way that is. And whether that is, you can be impactful in simple ways, like just, I have, I don't even remember, 7 nieces, let's say, and 5 nephews or whatever the count is, something like 13. There's 13 of them and all, right? If I can be an inspiration to them in some way as the next generation, I think that's impactful, right? And it doesn't have to be big impact, just little impact. So my goal is to be impactful in whatever way. So there's little things, and then even in my career and my job, how can I have an impact on, say, the people who report to me or other people in my organization? How can I have an impact to the growth of my group and my we're consultants and we're a pretty small practice within a larger organization. Right. So can I impact that? And then most importantly, how can I impact like my clients as a consultant?
Right.
I think one of the things I think of every morning, even as a consultant, is how can I do right by my clients? It's like it has to be for them. It's not about me.
Yeah.
And so I think, so if I want to think 10, 20 years, I really don't know what it is, but I think it's just being beyond just me and making a difference.
It sounds like at least, at the very least, your company, you're a dream worker because you're really putting that thought first, that how can you become better for your clients' advantage and their betterment. And that's like, not everybody thinks about it that way. It sounds like you're such a genuine person. It sounds like that's just like part of who you are. Like
Yeah.
that's who you are. That's your DNA.
Yeah.
And you're just extending that to the world around you. And I think that's just the most beautiful thing.
Thank you.
I do want to talk a little bit about your creative side. So you do photography. Like you said, you sing. I would love for you to sing for us. But what are, how, is that something that you just like cultivated over time? Or is that something you did when you were little and you're just like continuing to do that? And how did you find yourself interested in, because you're a really good photographer too, and you're an amazing singer. So how did that happen? And you said that you were doing things now, not like forgetting that side of you and putting whatever time you can find into that. So would love for you to just like tell us a little bit, because I feel like oftentimes that happens with me. I don't know what my creative side is, but I'm working throughout the week, and by the time like you're having dinner and working out, it's like 9:30, and on the weekend I do have FOMO, so I want to like go out and do stuff, and I don't really stop to think that, okay, what are some of the things that I need to do to free up my mind and invest in something that I can like build over time.
Yeah.
I don't do that. It sounds like you do that. So please educate us.
Yeah, not as much as I'd like to. But so just going back to, I've sung since I was 4, right? My mom says I sang before I talked. So, and I don't think I was saying words. So I always think of this, if you think of ABBA, they sing that song, right? What is it called? Thank You for the Music. Like if I were to identify myself with anything, that's the song. And and not so much anymore, but like the first lines of that song is, I'm nothing special. In fact, I'm a bit of a bore. But if I tell a joke, you probably, whatever, right? No. So, anyway, but it's sort of true. Like if I tell a joke, I'm not a joke teller or whatever, but I do think that when I sing, people stop. And so I do identify with that song.
Yeah.
So I've been singing since I was a child. I never really pursued it. I pursued it very shortly professionally. Like I was a wedding singer for 2 years in Mumbai, which was fun. Actually, best years of my life, I think. You know,
you should go back.
Yeah, exactly. I like being on stage. I guess there's a piece of me that likes being the center of attention. So it was good. So, so now I try, not as much on the singing side. I took singing lessons for a while, which was nice. On the artistic side, again, just something that I've been doing since I was a child.
Yeah.
And then what happens is as you grow older, there's less and less time. And so I try to manifest it in different ways. So photography is just one channel that I manifested in. With the photography, it's also travel, so it's memories. I wish I was the kind of person who just took my camera out every day. Like they say, to be a true photographer, you take at least one picture every day.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot of commitment.
Yeah, I know. So it's I take travel pictures. I like to travel, and so so I think it's both of those things. Just do a little bit. And so I have a few dreams, just when you say what you want to see 10-20 years from now. So one dream is I want to have an exhibition of my art at some point in my life, whether it's and so I also sketch like that portrait thing.
It's beautiful.
So just the photographs and the sketching. So that would be nice. And then my other dream is I want to sing in the Kennedy Center at some point in my life.
Whoa.
No, I don't want to be. I don't need to sing solo, whether it's part of a chorus or whatever. So those are my two artistic side dreams. So,
very possible.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, exactly. Living here, right?
Yeah.
So I just need to find the right channel to channel that, and it's you have to go find the opportunity, and you have to give some to get some. So it's, when you're juggling so many balls, it's which one do you drop? And so I think, it is a pretty introspective point in my life this year and the next one, just to see what comes next.
That's awesome. So I had no idea that Gaelyn was such a good singer, and she has this beautiful melodious voice. We were at our friend's wedding in Shenandoah.
Oh, yeah.
Shenandoah, right? And I had no idea that she was going to even sing or anything like that. And we were at like this big table, and suddenly they announced that, we have a song from Gaelyn. And I was like, Gaelyn? And then Gaelyn walks up there, and oh my God. My mouth was open, I think, for the first like 2 minutes because I couldn't believe that, first of all, it was Gaelyn, and I couldn't believe what was coming out of her mouth. So it was amazing. And I would love, and if you're okay with it, for you to like just do a little bit for us, 15, 20 seconds of your beautiful voice. Share it with us.
So I took voice lessons a couple of years ago, which I think because of the pandemic took a back seat. But my teacher, Tanya, I'll just say her first name, Tanya.
Yeah.
She encouraged me to sing opera, which I'd never done before.
Wow.
And so baby steps, I didn't quite sing opera right out the gate, but I started with like Broadway music that was slightly operatic.
Yeah.
And so one of the songs she encouraged me to sing, or I chose to sing, was Think of Me from Phantom of the Opera.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Tall order.
Yeah. So I can try. I'll just maybe try the first
that'd
verse
be
of
awesome.
that, and just know that I haven't sung in years. So if it
Yes.
doesn't sound quite right, so let me see if I remember the lyrics. Okay. Think of me. Think of me fondly when we've said goodbye. Remember me every so often. Promise me you'll try. On that day, that not so distant day, when you are far away and free. Just remember me that sometimes you will think of me. All right.
Oh my God. That was amazing. Goosebumps. Touch. Goosebumps. Not even joking.
I forgot the lyrics in between, but
no, it's okay. Okay, well, poor Roxy.
Yeah, I think Roxy keeps me grounded. She reminds me that, life is just a squirrel or a rabbit to chase. Little pleasures, right, baby?
Do you want to pick Roxy up so that we can show?
Say hello. Gonna be
hello.
A podcast. Look at that.
Look at that.
Look at Roxy. Gonna be famous. She's like, I don't know. Just give me some chicken or something. All right, you can go down. You're just that little girl.
Thank you, Gaelyn. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for asking me. It's always a pleasure.
Obviously, and you're gonna be on one of the upcoming episodes. I know I am tasty. I know. I know. You're so cute.
Yes.
But on one of the upcoming episodes, you're going to be my co-host.
Yes.
And you're going to bring a friend
yes.
that you're inspired by.
Absolutely.
That you have a shared connection with.
Yes.
And we'll have the same conversation, but a completely different shade and completely different layer with that friend of yours.
Yes.
And I'm really excited for that conversation as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gaelyn.
Thank you, Divya.
Bye, everyone. See you later.
See you later. Bye.